The wind howled across the frozen Siberian landscape as Dr. Elizabeth Harmon pulled her thick coat tighter around her body. The cold bit at her face despite the protective gear. Behind her, the rest of her team unloaded equipment from their vehicles. They had traveled for days to reach this remote location after satellite images had revealed something strange beneath the ice. Dr. Harmon, the ground-penetrating radar is ready, called Frank Morris, brushing snow from his beard. His gloved hands worked quickly despite the freezing temperature. As the team's geologist, he had been the first to spot the unusual readings that brought them here. Elizabeth nodded and walked over to examine the equipment. Good work, Frank. Let's see what's hiding under all this ice. For 3 days, they had been mapping an unusual formation buried deep in the permafrost. At first, they thought it might be a natural cave system, but the readings showed metal. Lots of metal, and in shapes that didn't occur in nature. I still think we should wait for more equipment, said Abigail Grant, the team's linguistics expert. She had joined the expedition when early samples from the site revealed markings that resembled no known human language. Whatever is down there has been frozen for thousands of years. It can wait a few more days. Elizabeth shook her head. The university's funding runs out next week. If we don't have something concrete to show them, they'll pull our grant. She didn't add that her academic rivals would love nothing more than to see her fail. At 38, she was younger than most department heads, and many resented her rapid rise in the field of archaeology. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the snow, the team's drill finally broke through into an open space. Beneath the ice, warm air rushed up from below, melting the surrounding snow and creating an eerie mist. That's impossible, Frank said, checking his instruments. The air coming up is 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing should be generating heat down there. Elizabeth peered down into the darkness. Lower the camera. The team gathered around a monitor as the camera descended into the darkness. At first, they saw only ice and rock. Then the camera light reflected off something smooth and metallic. Is that manufactured? Abigail whispered. As the camera continued downward, the object became clearer. It was massive, at least the size of a football field, with a sleek, curved surface unlike any human craft. The metal, if it was metal, had a faint blue sheen that seemed to pulse with inner light. We need to get down there, Elizabeth said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Prepare the climbing gear. Major Daniel Carter, who had been quietly observing from the edge of the group, stepped forward. Dr. Harmon, as your military liaison, I need to remind you of protocol. Unknown objects of this nature must be reported before further exploration. Elizabeth had nearly forgotten about the Major. The government had insisted on sending him along, claiming national security concerns. She found his presence irritating, but unavoidable. And I'll file that report as soon as we know what we're dealing with, Major. Now, are you coming down with us, or would you prefer to wait up here in the cold? 4 hours later, Elizabeth stood inside what she now knew was definitely not a natural formation. Her flashlight beam swept across walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to change when viewed from different angles. The air was surprisingly breathable and warm, as if the structure had its own environmental systems still running after who knows how long. This is beyond amazing, Frank said, running his hand over a smooth panel. The material doesn't match anything in our geological databases. It's not metal exactly, but it's definitely not stone either. Abigail was taking photos of every symbol she could find. The patterns repeat, which suggests language rather than decoration, but the structure is unlike any human linguistic system I've studied. Major Carter kept his distance from the walls, his hand never far from his sidearm. How old do you think this is? Elizabeth carefully removed a small sample from what appeared to be organic material near one of the panels. We'll need carbon dating to be sure, but based on the ice layers above us, at least 20,000 years. Maybe more. That's impossible, Carter said. Human civilization only goes back about 6,000 years. Nobody could have built this. Exactly, Elizabeth replied. Which means whoever built it wasn't human. The team spent hours documenting everything they could. The structure extended far beyond what they could explore in one day, disappearing into tunnels that led deeper underground. What they could see appeared to be a room with control panels and screens, though all were dark and silent. As Elizabeth examined what looked like a central console, her flashlight illuminated a depression that seemed designed to fit a hand, though the impression showed 6 fingers instead of 5. Without thinking, she placed her own hand on it. Immediately, lights flickered throughout the room. Panels that had seemed like solid walls now glowed with soft blue light. Strange sounds, clicks and hums, filled the air. "What did you do?" Carter demanded, drawing his weapon. "I don't know," Elizabeth admitted. She was interrupted by a sudden vibration that ran through the entire structure. A section of the wall that had appeared solid slid open, revealing a chamber beyond. Inside was a glass-like tube containing what looked like a control chair, sized for someone taller than a human. "It's a ship," Frank whispered. "We're standing inside a spaceship." A beam of intense light shot upward from somewhere deep within the structure, punching through the ice and rock above them and continuing into the sky. "It's sending a signal," Abigail said, her voice filled with wonder and fear. "It's calling to someone." Over the next week, scientists and military personnel from around the world descended on the site. Carbon dating confirmed what seemed impossible. The ship had been buried in the ice for approximately 30,000 years. Elizabeth's team worked day and night to document everything they could. Abigail made progress with the symbols, determining they represented a mathematical language unlike any on Earth. Frank discovered that the ship's hull was composed of materials that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of chemistry. 10. Days after the discovery, as Elizabeth worked late into the night trying to understand the ship's propulsion system, all the screens inside the vessel suddenly activated at once. Symbols scrolled rapidly across them, then resolved into a single message that somehow everyone could understand regardless of their native language. "We have received your signal. The caretakers return. Prepare for our arrival. The seating will be evaluated." Major Carter immediately called his superiors. Within hours, deep space monitoring stations around the world detected an object moving toward Earth at impossible speed. Something was coming, and it wanted its ship back. 6 months passed since the discovery of the alien ship. The world had changed almost overnight. Governments across the globe formed a united response team, and the area around the ship in Siberia was now the most guarded place on Earth. Massive dome structures protected the site from the harsh weather, while scientists from every nation worked in shifts to understand the ancient technology. Elizabeth had barely left the site in all that time. She lived in a small cabin near the main research facility, sleeping only a few hours each night. The dark circles under her eyes showed her exhaustion, but her excitement kept her going. This was the greatest discovery in human history, and she was at the center of it. "You should rest," Frank said as he brought her a cup of coffee. His own beard had grown longer over the months, giving him the look of a mountain man rather than a respected geologist. Elizabeth took the coffee gratefully. "I'll rest when we figure out what this part does." She pointed to a section of the ship that appeared to be some kind of engine room. "If we can understand their power source, it could solve Earth's energy problems forever." Abigail walked in holding a tablet computer. In the months since the discovery, she had made remarkable progress understanding the alien language. "I've translated more of the ship's records," she said. "It seems the aliens didn't just visit Earth. They stayed for nearly 100 years. "What were they doing here for so long?" Elizabeth asked. Abigail's face showed concern. "That's the part that worries me. There are references to something called genetic sampling and species modification. I think they were studying early humans, maybe even changing them." Before Elizabeth could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the facility. Major Carter, now promoted to colonel after the importance of the discovery became clear, rushed into the room. "They're here," he said simply. The 3 scientists followed him to the command center, a large room filled with screens and military personnel. The main screen showed a view from one of Earth's orbital telescopes. A massive object had entered the solar system and was moving toward Earth at incredible speed. How long until they reach us? Elizabeth asked. At their current speed, less than 12 hours, answered a technician. President Laura Martinez appeared on one of the screens. In the months since the discovery, she had become the unofficial spokesperson for Earth's response to the alien message. Her calm demeanor had helped prevent panic across the globe. Dr. Harmon, what can you tell me about our visitors? The president asked. Elizabeth stepped forward. Based on what we've translated, they call themselves the Narthul. They're an ancient spacefaring civilization that visited Earth during the last ice age. This ship we found appears to be what they call a seed ship. We're still not entirely clear on its purpose. Are they hostile? The president asked. We don't know, Elizabeth answered honestly. Their message only said they were returning for their property. We should assume they are, Colonel Carter interjected. We've discovered weapons systems on the seed ship. They were well armed when they came here 30,000 years ago. President Martinez nodded gravely. All military forces worldwide are on high alert. We hope for peaceful contact, but we must be prepared for the worst. As the hours passed, the alien ship grew closer. It was massive, at least a mile long, with a design similar to the buried seed ship but far more elaborate. People around the world watched the sky, some in fear, others in wonder. Elizabeth, Frank, and Abigail returned to the seed ship. If the aliens wanted communication, it would likely happen through their own technology. I think we should activate the ship's communication array, Elizabeth suggested. Show them we've been studying their technology, not just sitting on it. That could be seen as tampering with their property, Frank warned. Or it could show them we're intelligent enough to understand their technology, Elizabeth countered. They left this ship here for a reason. I think they wanted us to find it. With Colonel Carter's reluctant approval, Elizabeth activated what they believed was the ship's communication system. Almost immediately, the screens throughout the seed ship came to life, showing an image that made everyone step back in surprise. The being on the screen was clearly not human. It stood nearly 7 feet tall with slender limbs and a head that seemed too large for its body. Its skin had a faint bluish tint that seemed to shimmer with inner light. Most striking were its eyes, large, with no visible pupils, and a deep, purple color that seemed to look right through the screen. Greetings, children of Earth, the being said in perfect English, its mouth moving strangely around the words. I am Ambassador Krell of the Narthul Collective. We have received the activation signal from our seed ship and have returned as scheduled. As scheduled? Elizabeth asked before she could stop herself. The alien's head tilted slightly. Yes. The seeding project had a predetermined duration of 30,000 Earth years. We are precisely on time. Colonel Carter stepped forward. What is this seeding project? What were you doing on our planet? Your planet? The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. We arrived here when your species was still learning to use simple tools. The purpose of the seed ship was to observe and occasionally guide your development. You experimented on our ancestors, Abigail said, her voice tight with emotion. Ambassador Krell's expression didn't change, but something in those purple eyes seemed to soften. We helped your species survive a particularly harsh climate cycle. Without our intervention, humans might have gone extinct like many other species of that era. Why? Elizabeth asked. Why help us? That is a complex question with many answers, Krell responded. Some of which are contained in the seed ship's databanks. Have you not accessed them? We've only begun to understand your technology, Elizabeth admitted. Then you have much to learn, Krell said. But time is short. We must reclaim our vessel. It contains biological samples and technological records that are vital to our civilization. The ship is currently buried under ice, Frank explained. It would take months to safely extract it without damaging your technology. For the first time, the alien showed a reaction that looked like concern. That is unfortunate. Our need is urgent. Maybe we can help each other, Elizabeth suggested. We have questions about your technology and your time on Earth. You need your ship. Perhaps we can work together. Ambassador Krell was silent for a moment, those strange eyes studying Elizabeth carefully. An interesting proposal. I will discuss this with the High Council. We will descend to your atmosphere in 6 of your hours. Prepare a meeting place where we may talk face to face. The screen went dark, leaving the humans staring at each other in a mixture of fear and hope. You just invited aliens to land on Earth, Colonel Carter said, his voice tight with anger. Yes, Elizabeth replied calmly. Because whether we like it or not, they're coming, and they know more about us than we know about them. Our best chance is to learn as much as we can, as quickly as we can. As they left the seed ship, they saw that the night sky had changed. A new light shone among the stars, brighter than any planet, as the Narthul ship moved into Earth orbit. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization was only hours away. The meeting place chosen for humanity's first official contact with the Narthul was a large aircraft carrier in international waters. The USS Liberty floated in the calm Pacific Ocean, its deck cleared of all aircraft to make room for the alien shuttle. World leaders watched from a safe distance, while news cameras broadcast the event to billions of people around the globe. Elizabeth stood on the deck beside President Martinez, trying to stay calm. The wind blew her hair across her face as she looked up at the sky. Frank and Abigail stood nearby along with Colonel Carter and his security team. They had all been chosen as Earth's first contact team due to their experience with the seed ship. Are you nervous? President Martinez asked. Elizabeth quietly. Terrified, Elizabeth admitted, but excited too. Everything we know about human history might change today. A hush fell over the crowd as a light appeared in the sky. It grew brighter until it took shape as a smaller vessel breaking away from the main Narthul ship. Unlike human aircraft, it made almost no sound as it descended, just a soft hum that vibrated through the air. The shuttle was sleek and oval-shaped, with the same blue-tinted metal as the seed ship. It hovered above the carrier deck before gently touching down. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a door appeared in the smooth surface, sliding open to reveal Ambassador Krell and 2 other Narthul. In person, the aliens were even more striking than on the screen. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, with slender bodies and 6-fingered hands. Their skin had a faint glow that seemed to shift colors under the sunlight. They wore simple fitted garments that looked like a single piece of flowing material. Welcome to Earth, President Martinez said, stepping forward with her hand extended. Ambassador Krell looked at her hand curiously before extending his own 6-fingered hand. Thank you for your welcome, President Laura Martinez of the United Nations of Earth. Just the United States, actually, she corrected with a smile. Earth has many nations. Ah, Krell said, his voice showing surprise. Our records indicated a unified planetary government would be established by now. Interesting. Elizabeth felt a chill run through her. The aliens had expected humans to develop in certain ways. What else had they planned for humanity? The meeting moved to a conference, room below deck. The Narthul sat on one side of a large table, while the humans sat on the other. Guards stood at the doors, their hands never far from their weapons. I will speak plainly, Ambassador Krell began. The seed ship you discovered contains valuable technology and biological samples that are vital to our civilization's survival. We must retrieve it quickly. We understand your urgency, President Martinez replied, but extracting the ship without damaging it will take time. And frankly, we have many questions about your previous visit to Earth. Krell's large eyes blinked, slowly. That is reasonable. What do you wish to know? Let's start with why you came to Earth 30,000 years ago, Elizabeth said, and what exactly you did to our ancestors. The other 2 Narthul exchanged glances before Krell answered. We are explorers and scientists. We seek knowledge across the galaxy. Your planet was of interest because of its biodiversity and the promising development of early humans. And you decided to help this development along? Frank asked. Yes, Krell confirmed. Your species showed unusual potential, but you were struggling to survive a harsh climate change. We provided subtle genetic modifications to improve your resistance to cold, your ability to store nutrients, and your cognitive capabilities. The room fell silent as the humans absorbed this information. Their very existence as modern humans might be partly due to alien intervention. "So you changed us," Colonel Carter said, his voice hard. "Made us different than we would have been naturally. We optimized traits already present in your genetic code." One of the other Narthul spoke for the first time. "We did not create anything new. We merely accelerated what was already possible." Abigail leaned forward. "The ship's records mention something called the Hunters. Who are they?" The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. The Narthul became very still, their skin color darkening slightly. "How did you access those records?" Krell asked, his voice sharper than before. "I've been translating your language," Abigail explained. "I found references to them in what appeared to be log entries." Krell was silent for a moment before answering. "The Hunters are another spacefaring race. They have been pursuing our kind for millennia. They are the reason we left the seed ship on Earth." "You were hiding it from them?" Elizabeth asked. "Not exactly," Krell said. "The seed ship contains defensive technology that could protect both our civilizations, but it needed time to mature." "President," Martinez frowned. "What do you mean by mature?" "The technology is partially organic," explained the third Narthul. "It grows and evolves over time, learning from its environment. After 30,000 years in Earth's unique conditions, it has developed properties that could be extremely valuable. So, we weren't just test subjects," Elizabeth realized. "Earth was an incubator for your technology." "Both," Krell admitted. "The relationship was meant to be symbiotic. We helped your species survive, and in return your planet nurtured our technology." As the meeting continued, Colonel Carter slipped away quietly. He made his way to a secure communications room and contacted his superiors. "They're not telling us everything," he reported. "I've been studying the weapon systems on the seed ship. They're far more advanced than anything they're admitting to. If they get that ship back, they'll have technology that could easily overwhelm Earth's defenses." Meanwhile, in the conference room, Richard Powell, Earth's chief diplomat, proposed a compromise. A joint team of humans and Narthul would work together to safely extract the seed ship. In the process, the Narthul would share knowledge of their history and technology. "That seems fair," President Martinez said. "We help you recover your property, and you help us understand our own history better." Ambassador Krell considered this. "We agree to these terms with one condition. We must begin immediately. Time is of greater essence than you realize." "Why? The rush after 30,000 years?" Elizabeth asked. Krell's eyes met hers. "Because the Hunters have improved their tracking technology. We believe they detected the seed ship's activation signal. If they did, they will be coming." "Are these Hunters dangerous?" President Martinez asked. "They destroyed the last 5 planets where we attempted to establish peaceful contact," Krell said simply. "They consume all resources and move on. If they find Earth, your civilization will end." As the implications of this statement sank in, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. A communications officer burst into the room. "Madam President, we're detecting unknown objects entering the solar system at high speed. They're not responding to any hails." The Narthul rose to their feet, their skin now pulsing with light. "We must return to our ship immediately," Krell said urgently. "The Hunters have found us sooner than expected." Elizabeth felt her heart pounding. In just a matter of days, humanity had gone from being alone in the universe to being caught in the middle of an ancient alien conflict. Chaos erupted on the USS Liberty as the Narthul rushed back to their shuttle. Military personnel ran in all directions, preparing for a possible attack. President Martinez was quickly escorted to a secure room deep within the ship, while Elizabeth and her team were left standing in confusion. "We need to go with them," Elizabeth said suddenly, grabbing Frank's arm. "If these Hunters are coming, the Narthul need to get their ship working as quickly as possible." "Are you crazy?" Colonel Carter demanded. "We can't just hand over the most advanced technology on Earth to aliens we barely know. We don't have a choice," Abigail argued. "You heard what they said about these Hunters. If they're real, Earth is in danger." Before Carter could respond, Ambassador Krell appeared at Elizabeth sighed. Dr. Harmon, we request your assistance. Your knowledge of the seed ship could prove valuable in accelerating its recovery. Carter stepped between them. She's not going anywhere with you. This is not the time for distrust, Colonel, Krell said, his voice calm but firm. If you wish to accompany us as security, you are welcome to do so. After a tense moment, Carter nodded. Fine, but I'm bringing my team. Within an hour, a combined group of humans and Narthul were flying back to Siberia. During the flight, Elizabeth studied the data coming in about the new alien ships. How long until they reach Earth? She asked Krell. 3 days, perhaps 4, the alien replied. They are faster than they were 30,000 years ago, but still not as fast as our current vessels. If your ships are faster, why not just leave? Frank asked. The seed ship contains defensive technology that could protect this entire solar system, Krell explained. Without it, we can only run, and your planet would be left defenseless. When they arrived at the Siberian facility, they found it buzzing with frantic activity. Scientists and military personnel were working around the clock to prepare the seed ship for extraction. Massive heaters had been melting the surrounding ice while engineers prepared special equipment to lift the ancient vessel. General Victor Winters, a tall man with cold eyes, met them at the entrance. Colonel Carter, I wasn't informed you were bringing our guests directly to the site. By order of the President, Carter replied stiffly. It was clear he didn't like the general. Of course, Winters said with a tight smile. Well, we've made progress. At our current rate, we should have the ship free in about 2 weeks. That is too long, Krell said. The hunters will be here in 3 days. Winters looked unimpressed. Then I suggest your people help us work faster. As the days passed, humans and Narthul worked side by side. Despite initial tensions, many of the scientists found themselves fascinated by the aliens' knowledge. The Narthul freely shared information about their technology, showing humans how to operate equipment that seemed like magic. Elizabeth spent most of her time in what they now knew was the seed ship's control room. With Krell's guidance, she was learning to access more of the ship's databanks. I still don't understand why this ship is so important to you, she said as they worked. You have much more advanced vessels now. Krell's fingers moved gracefully over the control panels. The seed ship contains biological samples from our homeworld before it was destroyed. These samples are genetically pure, untainted by the changes that have affected our species over the millennia. What changes? Elizabeth asked. Krell hesitated before answering. Our species is dying, Dr. Harmon. A genetic degradation has made each generation weaker than the last. We believe the original genetic material stored in this ship may hold the key to our survival. Meanwhile, Frank had been working with the Narthul scientists to understand the ship's power core. What he discovered amazed him. It's unlike anything we've ever seen, he told Elizabeth during a brief break. It generates energy by creating tiny, controlled folds in space-time. If we could replicate this technology, Earth could have unlimited clean energy for centuries. Abigail made her own discovery while translating more of the ship's records. She found Elizabeth in the mess hall, her face pale with concern. The hunters aren't just another alien race, she said quietly. According to these records, they were created by the Narthul thousands of years ago as a worker species, but they rebelled and have been hunting their creators ever since. Are you sure? Elizabeth asked. Positive. The Narthul aren't telling us everything. On the 3rd day, as the ice around the seed ship was nearly gone, General Winters called an emergency meeting of the human leadership. I've been analyzing the weapons systems on the seed ship, he said, displaying images on a large screen. They're far more powerful than the Narthul have admitted. With these weapons, Earth could defend itself against any threat, including the Narthul themselves. What are you suggesting? Colonel Carter asked suspiciously. I'm suggesting we keep the ship, Winters said bluntly. The President is too trusting. These aliens show up after 30,000 years, claim some other aliens are chasing them, and we just hand over the most powerful technology humanity has ever seen. We should use it ourselves. That would violate our agreement, Elizabeth protested. Agreements can be changed, Winters replied coldly. I've already spoken with several world leaders who support my position. Before anyone could argue further, alarms blared throughout the facility. A technician burst into the room. "Sir, the Narthul ship in orbit is powering up its weapon systems." On the main screen, they watched as the massive alien vessel moved into a defensive position above Earth. Smaller craft began to deploy around it. "They're preparing for battle," Carter said grimly. Elizabeth ran from the room, heading for the seed ship. She found Krell and the other Narthul working frantically to activate the ship's systems. "What's happening?" she demanded. "The hunters have arrived earlier than expected," Krell replied without looking up. "They will be within weapons range in 1 hour." "Why didn't you tell us they were your creation?" Elizabeth asked. Krell's hands paused briefly. "It is a shameful part of our history. We created them to serve us, gave them intelligence but tried to control their will. When they broke free, they swore to destroy us. They see all advanced civilizations as potential threats and destroy them preemptively." Before Elizabeth could respond, a massive explosion rocked the facility. The lights flickered and dust fell from the ceiling. "What was that?" she cried. Colonel Carter ran in, his face grim. "General Winters has ordered an attack on the Narthul ship in orbit. He's trying to seize control of the seed ship." "That fool will doom us all," Krell said, his voice filled with rare emotion. "If the seed ship is not activated in time, the hunters will destroy your planet just as they have destroyed every world we have contacted." Elizabeth looked from Krell to Carter, realizing that humanity's first contact with alien life had just erupted into war, even as a greater threat loomed just beyond Earth's atmosphere. The ground shook as another explosion hit somewhere above the facility. Chunks of ice and concrete fell from the ceiling. Elizabeth grabbed a nearby railing to steady herself as the lights flickered. "We need to stop this madness," she said, turning to Colonel Carter. "Can you contact the President?" Carter shook his head. "Communications are down. Winters must have cut them off to prevent interference with his plan." "Your General Winters does not understand what he is facing," Krell said, his skin pulsing with agitation. "The hunters will arrive soon, and your weapons cannot stop them." Elizabeth looked at the seed ship, now almost completely free from the ice. "How close are we to getting this operational?" "Very close," one of the other Narthul replied. "But we need access to the central control chamber. It is still partially covered in ice." Frank pushed his way through the chaos toward them. "I can help with that. We modified some industrial heaters to work faster." As they raced to complete their work, the battle continued above. The Narthul ship in orbit was holding back, firing only defensive shots that disabled Earth weapons without causing major damage. But General Winters was escalating the attack, sending more fighters and missiles with each passing minute. Deep in the facility, Abigail was working frantically to translate the final commands needed to activate the seed ship. She called Elizabeth. On the radio. "I found something important," she said, her voice breaking up through static. "The ship's memory banks contain a message from the Narthul who left it here 30,000 years ago. It was meant to be viewed when the ship was recovered." "Can you access it?" Elizabeth asked. "Already done. I'm sending it to your tablet now." Elizabeth's tablet lit up with an image that made her gasp. It showed a Narthul who looked similar to Krell but with subtle differences. The message began to play, the alien's voice translated by Abigail's program. "To those who find this vessel," the ancient Narthul spoke, "I am Commander Vess of the Narthul Collective. We leave this seed ship in hopes that it will survive what is to come. Our civilization is facing extinction at the hands of our own creation, the species we call the Hunters. We bear responsibility for their existence and their hatred of all advanced life." The image shifted to show scenes of devastation, planets burning, cities destroyed. "We have hidden defensive technology within this ship," Vess continued. "Technology that can detect and neutralize the Hunter's weapons, but it requires time to mature, to bond with its environment. The humans of this world showed great potential. We have given them small genetic gifts to help them survive and evolve. In return, we hope they will be worthy allies when the time comes." The message ended with a series of technical instructions. Elizabeth looked up to find Krell watching her. You knew about this message, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Krell admitted. Commander Vess was my ancestor. The seed chip was left here as both a safeguard for your species and a hope for ours. Another explosion, closer this time, rocked the facility. Part of the ceiling collapsed nearby, narrowly missing them. We're out of time, Carter said. Winters is going to get us all killed. Elizabeth made a decision. Frank, get those heaters working at full power. Abigail, send those technical instructions to the Narthul engineers. Colonel, we need to find a way to contact the president. There's an emergency transmitter in the security office, Carter said. But it's on the other side of the facility. Then let's go, Elizabeth said firmly. As they ran through the crumbling facility, they passed scientists and soldiers taking cover from the falling debris. Outside, they could hear the sound of aircraft and weapons fire. In the security office, Carter activated the emergency transmitter. After tense minutes of static, President Martinez's voice came through. Colonel Carter? What's happening? General Winters has claimed the aliens attacked first. That's a lie, Madam President, Carter said quickly. Winters launched an unprovoked attack. He's trying to seize the seed ship. Elizabeth leaned toward the microphone. Madam President, the hunters are real, and they're almost here. The seed ship contains technology that can protect Earth, but only if we work with the Narthul. There was a long pause before the president responded. I'm ordering General Winters to stand down immediately. Can you get the seed ship operational in time? We're trying, Elizabeth said. When they returned to the excavation site, they found Frank and the Narthul engineers had made progress. The ice around the control chamber was melting rapidly. The president has ordered Winters to stop the attack, Carter told them. Let's hope he listens. Above them, the sounds of battle began to fade. But a new alert came over the emergency channel. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had detected the hunter ships entering the solar system. They would reach Earth within hours. As the last of the ice cleared, revealing the seed ship's control chamber, Krell and his team moved quickly to activate the ancient systems. Lights began to glow throughout the ship as dormant technology came to life. Elizabeth, Frank, Abigail, and Carter watched in awe as the ship's systems powered up fully for the first time in 30,000 years. The blue glow intensified, spreading through the metal like living energy. It's beautiful, Abigail whispered. On the main control panel, a holographic display appeared showing the solar system. Red dots representing the hunter ships were approaching rapidly. Will it work? Elizabeth asked Krell. We will know soon, the alien replied, his six-fingered hands moving across the controls. The seed ship began to hum with power. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the facility until it was almost painful. Then, suddenly, a pulse of blue energy burst from the ship, expanding outward like a wave. On the holographic display, they watched as the pulse spread through the solar system. When it reached the red dots representing the hunter ships, they flickered and then disappeared. What happened? Frank asked. Did it destroy them? No, Krell explained. The technology doesn't destroy. It disrupts their navigation and weapons systems. They cannot approach Earth now, nor can they attack. They will drift harmlessly until they leave this solar system. A cheer went up from the humans in the room, but Elizabeth noticed that Krell didn't join in the celebration. There's more to this, isn't there? She asked quietly. Krell nodded. This is only temporary. The hunters will adapt as they always do, and there are more of them throughout the galaxy. Then what do we do? Elizabeth asked. We learn from each other, Krell said. The relationship my ancestors hoped for 30,000 years ago can still come to pass. Humans and Narthul working together. You have creativity and resilience that our species has lost. We have knowledge and technology that can help you advance. Colonel Carter approached them. General Winters has been relieved of command. President Martinez is requesting to speak with both of you. As they left the chamber, Elizabeth looked back at the ancient ship, now fully awake after its long sleep. She thought about how much human history had changed in just a few days. Humans were not alone in the universe. They were part of something much bigger, a story that had been unfolding for tens of thousands of years. And now, a new chapter was beginning. Not as experiments or subjects, but as partners facing a common threat. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time humanity would walk it with allies from the stars.